Welcome everyone to today's Lunch and Learn webinar, What's New in Dynamics NAV? Introducing the web client in Dynamics 365 Business Central, brought to you by ArcherPoint. Our session today is being hosted by ArcherPoint's Bruce Kennedy. Bruce has 30 years of expertise and experience in all things ERP, Dynamics NAV, and Business Central, as well as functional finance, manufacturing, and distribution. Prior to coming to ArcherPoint, he was a technical consultant with Microsoft and a controller for a multinational manufacturing company. In today's webinar, Bruce will demonstrate the web client, which is the new interface offered in Business Central and will be the default client for Business Central when the Windows client is retired in the year 2020. So let's go ahead and get started. Bruce, over to you.
Thank you, Suzanne. And I am logged in to Business Central, and this is the web client. About 10 years ago, Microsoft introduced the role-tailored client, and the change was felt with mixed emotions, and Microsoft is now revamping the user interface once again, and we have the web client itself. I've logged in to the application as a business manager, and you can tell my description simply by looking at the tab for my web client showing business manager. As the business manager, I have a master menu, which includes multiple areas with submenus beneath them. And I also have an area in which I go to my most common areas, customers, vendors, items, and the like. Over here, I've got actions where I can quickly create a quote or an order or an invoice or any other purchase type of document. And if I want to expand the view, I simply use the arrows to increase the size of the view or to decrease the size of the view. I also have notifications that are being presented by Business Central. For example, I have one here that's showing the largest posted sales invoice for the period was $21,000. If I click on that notification, I'll get a list of all of my invoices showing me the actual values of them. And here's my $21,000 invoice. The back arrow lets me come back to where I was. As I scroll down, I'm in an area called Activities. Activities gives you many features, such as alerts or queues. So if I set up my queue, here I see the existing queues that I have, and I can establish a low, mid, or high range associated with that. The values currently established are at the company parameter, but I can change those on an individual basis. For example, if I change this 10,000 to 5,000, it shows over here as a checkbox under personalized, indicating that I have made a change from the company's value to my own personal value. If I want to bring it back to the company value, I simply deselect that and it brings it back to the company value itself. I'll go ahead and close out of here. Continuing on, I have multiple workflow tiles that give me information about work that I'm processing, work that I'm receiving, work that is being moved from my area to the next step. For example, there are 7 sales orders. If I click on the 7, then it's going to open up a list and show me the 7 sales orders in which I'm currently processing. The escape key also works as far as bringing you back to the previous section that you were in. Continuing scrolling down, other areas that I have are product videos. This enables you to have YouTube videos that give you information such as introductions, additional resources, and you can also create your own so that if you're hiring a new employee and you want them to have information about how processes are done in your organization, create a video and allow them to view that. If I click on this one for introduction, it'll open up and I can start to play that particular YouTube video. I'll go ahead and close this and exit from the screen. Also, under Getting Started, in addition to more videos, there's also an example of the role centers themselves. If I click here, it'll show for my current role as the business manager, all of the different functionality that I have under each one of these areas. And I have many different types of role centers that I could choose from in order to see the setup that is associated with each particular center themselves. I'll go ahead and exit from here and move again. Coming down, insights, business assistance, the ability to be able to have multiple charts. If I select a chart here, I've got different types that I could choose from, say aged accounts payable, it'll show me that. And I also have the ability of being able to show this in multiple time frames. So I can have many different views in a graphical format. Since I'm the business manager, I'm looking at my favorite accounts from the chart of accounts and the values that are currently posted to those particular accounts. I'm also looking at a trial balance comparative of last month to this month. And then following down again, Power BI. Many, many ways in which Power BI is being used within Business Central. Here is one example of generating a report. And if I want to see, again, additional reports, I simply select report, brings in a list of those. If I choose this one for items information, it'll refresh. And now I have a new graph giving me information about my business. Also, there's a report inbox that allows you to schedule those reports that you require for decision-making and analysis purposes. You have the ability of having those reports scheduled at a particular time and day, as well as the output in which you want those. And if you want to delete the particular report, simply select the report that you want to delete, go to the inbox and say delete, and that report is then gone. And then back to the top, bringing us right back to where we were to begin with. I'm going to click on one of my menu selections, the Intelligent Cloud Insights. Again, click on that. Here I have more KPIs that are being presented, as well as insights. One of the insights that we see is I have 10 of my customers that are late with their payments. If I click on this particular list, it'll show me those invoices that are past due. I can become proactive in making collections, calling up the customers in order to get the cash. Again, the back arrow brings us back to where we started. Let's go to our opening settings. I'll come up here to the settings gear, and I'm going to use my settings. This is where I would change my different role centers, such as Sales and Relationship Manager. Say OK. It'll refresh. And now as it shows in the tab here, my Sales and Relationship Manager role center. And here I have all information related to the marketing aspects of Business Central. Information about my opportunities, any campaigns that we have ongoing, and the like. Coming back to my settings, I also have change when I receive notifications. This is the my notifications that were in previous versions of NAV. And here you have the ability of enabling those particular notifications or disabling those. So if I don't want to see when inventory is low, for example, I simply deselect that, and I will not get that pop-up window when the information that I'm presenting shows that I have fewer than required. I can also change different companies using this functionality, as well as, again, my role centers. Let's go back to the Business Manager. And under actions, I have, in addition to those quick access, I have reports. And if I click on a report, such as a balance sheet, I'm going to be able to send this. And I can send it either as a PDF, Word document, Excel, or schedule. If I choose schedule, it's going to ask me information such as, again, what output type do I want that? When do I want to start this? When do I want to have it finished? I would say okay, and then the system will schedule that. And when it is completed, it'll show up in the report inbox that we saw earlier under the bottom of the page. Let's go take a look at list pages. So I'm going to click on sales, and I'm going to click on items. Notice that when I click on items, it's going to bring me to my item master, but it's also removed the submenu under sales. Let's go back to that just for a second. If I click here, I have a pin bar so that I can pin that. So now as I'm moving from one submenu item to another, I don't lose sight of this, and I can keep my processing going with fewer clicks. I'm looking at my item master in tile format, large tiles. I can look at them in normal tiles, or the more common view is in a list format itself. So here I'm looking at my list. Now, we also have fact boxes of information. Again, Power BI being part of the fact boxes that are being associated, so I can have multiple graphs of information based on the highlighted record that I'm currently viewing in the list. Also, item details, information about the item itself, such as costing and any sales price associated with that. Planning parameters that you may have for that particular item, as well as attributes, anything that you need to be able to associate with your items, such as color, depth, width, or any other type that you want to put in there. There's also forecasting, which is using artificial intelligence, allowing the system to help you project sales, forecast, and inventory projections into the future. Of course, it does need historical data in order to be able to make those projections, but it's using Cortana as the artificial intelligence source to be able to project those types of forecasts for you. Let's go ahead and remove those fact boxes, and I'll do that simply by clicking the information button. And now that has opened up more of my list of information. Let's go ahead and look at the ways that we can do filtering, such as a field filter and a table filter. For a field filter, I'd like to be able to filter on all items that have zero quantity on hand. I simply highlight that particular record and then come to my header, quantity on hand, do a right click and say filter to this value. I'm now looking at only those items that have zero quantity on hand. Also notice that it opened up a view here so that I can expand my filter requirements, giving me the capability of doing that table filter. So here I would simply add more filters. And when I do that, I can either go with the visible columns that I'm currently showing, or if I scroll down, I'll be able to use all other available columns related to the filter. Very similar to the role center that we're familiar with over the last 10 years from Microsoft. I'll go ahead and exit from here. I'll come back and I'll clear this filter and bring us back to our full list. Also note I have an icon here. If I want to use this to help me in my filter, I simply click that and brings that filter view back into play. Let's go ahead and personalize the way that this list is being presented to us. So I'll come back over here to my settings, and I'm going to use personalize. When I do that, I get this notification, and I can click on more. When I do that, I now have the ability of doing things such as my freeze pane. If I click on that red triangle, I can clear that, or perhaps I can move the freeze pane. So in order to do that, I simply point to where I want that, and I'll bring it over to here. And now I've changed where my freeze pane is. I also have the ability of moving or hiding the columns themselves. If I wanted to move this, I would simply move this over to here. It's now rearranged the column structure. And if I want to change the width, either increasing or decreasing, simply by moving that is going to change the width that I have. All of that is done by the personalization. Once I'm satisfied with the personalizations that I've created, I simply come back up here, I click on Done, and now I have finished that particular setting. Since we're listed on this particular item, let's open up the card for the Paris guest chair. Here, I will simply click here, and I can view this, or I can put it into edit mode, or I can also use this as a hyperlink. So to quickly get to that, I simply open the record by using the hyperlink, and now I'm presented with the card for this particular item. And if I want to see or hide an item tab, I simply click on that. It gives me the greater than sign indicating that there are more information below that. Simply by clicking that, it opens up that information. Again, you have the ability to be able to hide and show more information, show less, show more. And we also have, again, the ability to personalize this. Again, going to the personalize, using the more functionality. Now the red tab allows me to do things such as move the field to another location or to hide that particular field and bring it back into play later on. Again, when I'm done with my personalization, I simply click on Done. Also notice if I want to move from one card to the next, I have these indicators where I can click on the next card item, or if I want to go back to the previous, I simply click on the one to the left. Also at the top, if I want to bring this into read-only mode, I click the pencil. If I want to add a new record, I simply click the plus sign, or if I want to delete the record, I hit the trash can. And I'll use the back arrow to go back to our list, or again, I could use escape. Now, many people have asked, how can I have multiple views to navigate throughout the application? And they're very similar to what we have in the Windows. But in order to do that in the web client, we simply come to the tab, we do a right click, and we say duplicate. So now this is going to open up a new session, but it's going to be a duplicate of what we had. So I've got the business manager list here, and now I have a duplication of that. And if I wanted to go to the card for this particular item, and I want to see the list, I simply click on the tab again and go back to where I was. There's also the ability to do a copy and a paste. So I'm going to come back here to this list, and I'm going to go to my general ledger. So in order to go to general ledger, or ledger entries, I should say, I'm going to click on the icon here, the light bulb, and I'll type in what I'm trying to find. And as I type that, it's now giving me groupings. So here for pages and tasks, I'm showing the 3 top viewed forms. Or if I want to see all 12, I simply click this and get a detailed listing of all of the availabilities. In this case, I'm interested in the general ledger entries. So I simply click here, and it opens up all of my ledger entries. Now, in this case, I'd like to be able to copy all of these. So I'll simply come over to here and I'll say select more. When I do that, it now opens up a Boolean box. And I can cherry pick. If I only want to copy just those two, I simply select that. If I want to copy all, I come up to the header, which has now created this Boolean box. I click that, and it's now highlighted all of them. In this case, I'm going to use a control letter C for copy. I'll now come over to my waffle, and I'll choose the Office 365 Excel application. I'll create a new workbook. And now I will use the control letter V, and it's now copied all of my general ledger entries into an Excel spreadsheet where I can now manipulate that information. Let's come back to our business manager role. Let's do a sales order, just to give you an example of how that's done. So here I'm going to go to sales orders, and I'm going to select a new order. Who is my customer? I'll use customer 10,000. It finds, as I'm typing, and I'll come down here to my item. In this case, I'm interested in the Paris guest chair that we had seen before. Put in my location code. The quantity that I want to sell. And at this point, I can come up to more actions and choose warehouse shipments if I have the parameters established for that particular location, or if I'm simply going to post from the sales order, I simply come up to posting, click post, and I would either ship, invoice, or do both. I'll cancel from here. I'll escape out, and I'll use the company name in order to come back to my home page. Now, Microsoft has recently made an announcement of additional functionality that is going to be available in April and in months following. And I've gone through that extensive list of them, and I'd like to be able to talk about some of the additional features that are currently available in the window and as of today are not in the web client, but will be soon. And I've broken those up into about 3 different groupings: personalization enhancements, application enhancements, and others. So let's go through some of the items that are in the personalization enhancements. And this is not an all-inclusive list. It's what I thought would be some of the more noteworthy additions that Microsoft is bringing to the web client. One of them is to optimize the action bar. The items that we have in our action bar can be hidden or activated. You can add additional action items themselves. You'll be able to save filtered views. We created a view earlier. We could not save that now, but we will be able to save that as you're able to do in the Windows client. The quick entry is also going to be part of the web client, where you're going to be able to use the enter key and tab and skip through other fields, getting to only those fields that you're required to enter information in, expediting the process of transactions. And there will also be field importance. We have the hidden and shown more fields, but you'll also be able to promote fields that we cannot do today. And then we'll be able to personalize the navigation bar. We can add additional lists. We can reorder by dragging information in, and we can hide and regroup. As far as the application enhancements, there's going to be longer names and descriptions. Currently, those are limited to 50 characters. The expansion will allow that up to 100 characters, and that will be pertinent for all of the cards, documents, journals, and ledger entries. And the unit of measure description, which is currently 10 characters, will be expanded to 50. We'll be able to select multiple items simultaneously from an item list to be able to bring it to a sales or a purchase document. So rather than one at a time, we'll be able to select many and bring them all in at once. We'll also have a quote expiration calculation so that those companies that are issuing quotes can have an expiration date calculated for that. And then when that calculation expiration date does arrive, the user will be able to either delete or archive those quotes. We'll be able to also copy customers from the dimensions associated with customers to jobs. So as you're creating a job, you associate a customer to that. Any dimension that you have with that customer will automatically be brought forward to the job. We'll be able to also copy templates from customers, vendors, and items. So no longer do you have to recreate a new template from scratch. You can now use an existing template, copy it, and make the minor changes that you want to make in order to have a second or third or more templates. And something that's been requested quite a bit is the ability to merge duplicate customers or vendors. We'll be able to view payment information on the customer or the vendor statistics fact box. So as you're processing information for a vendor or a customer, you'll have that information available to you as well as the statistics and the history that you've got now with the customer. And finally, we'll be able to configure reports for warehouse management documents, very similar to what currently is available with custom report layouts, creating sales and purchase documents using Word. We'll also now be able to use that for documents like picks, putaways, and shipments. And then finally, for other information, notes and links will be brought into the web client. There will be a work date indicator similar to the My Notifications. You'll have that if your date is different than the system date. The application will show you that you're using a work date different. Do you want to keep it that way? Do you want to change it? Do you want to add it at default to the system date? There's also going to be more shortcuts, such as, not limited to, Alt-N for a new record, or Control left arrow, Control right arrow for previous and next. There's also going to be an auto save indicator. This is primarily for new to Business Central customers. Most people that have been running NAV for quite a while understand that the system automatically saves transaction and information as you're typing them. A lot of new customers are not aware of that and are familiar with saving. So there now will be an auto save, very similar to a Word document. As you're typing that, it'll go into an auto save. And then finally, there will be an improvement for scrolling and the load time for lists. So those lists that are very extensive in the volume, it'll be a lot quicker to be able to get to particular items or to scroll through the entire list. So those are the new features that are coming. You've now seen the web client, very different than the current user interface, but a lot of the functionality is still there, just a different way of being able to access it going through Business Central. And thank you for your time.
Thanks for watching this ArcherPoint video. If you found it helpful, make sure to check out our website and blog at www.archerpoint.com. Additionally, if you have any questions regarding our products, services, or information in this video, feel free to email us at info@archerpoint.com. Thanks.